saying no, but your body is saying yes. Anyone has any advice for Provia? She says she's trying very hard, but sometimes she's not succeeding.
My advice to her is that's expected, but then she shouldn't give up, but continue trying until it becomes a habit.
Exactly. And Tracy is absolutely right. So if it's a particular habit you're trying to build and it's proving to be hard, you can try to use the habit builder because the chain has been found to motivate people. When your chain is unbroken, you're less likely to break the chain. But if you have nowhere that you're keeping track where you can actually see, then it's easier to default. So if it's a habit you're trying to build, like your quiet time, try to use the habit builder that I shared with you. And every time you are successful, you draw a big cross and make sure that it creates a chain. That is actually usually very helpful. However, if you find that you're consistently failing to continue with the habit that you're trying to build, you need to go back to the drawing board. Remember, ask ourselves the whys. And that is going to lead us to a review of last week's session. Because normally there's a reason why you're not doing it, and you need to be able to actually look at it in detail. Sometimes when I'm doing the in-person classes, we go through what we call the root cause analysis, and we go deep to find out why. Last weekend, there was a lady who I'm coaching, and we had a review session last week. And she was telling me, I'm really, really stressed because my spouse does not take initiative. I feel that I'm the one who has to take initiative all the time. So we went through the root cause analysis with her and kept going down the whys, because I try to take people down up to a point where they have control. Remember our circles: control, influence, and what was the last one? What is the outermost circle called? The circle of?
Concern.
Concern.
The circle of concern.
Exactly. So we went through it with her. So I told her, right now, the way you have presented it to me is that something in your circle of concern is causing you stress, because whether her husband takes initiative or not is in her area of concern. You can't control a human being. You have tried to influence, but he's not doing anything. So we did a root cause analysis, and we kept doing why. So I asked her, why are you concerned that your husband is not taking initiative? She said, because then it means I have to take initiative. And I asked her, so why do you not want to take initiative? Why is it a problem that you should take the initiative? She said, because maybe I'll get blamed for when it goes wrong. And I said, then why is it a problem that you'll get blamed if it goes wrong? She said, because I'm not used to failing. So we went back and found that the problem came from her childhood. She was the brightest child in the family. And every time the parents looked up to her to bring home a perfect report, to be the most organized at home. So failure is not her portion. And so because she is afraid of failure, she doesn't want to be the one to take initiative. In case the initiative goes wrong, she wants someone else to be blamed. So she was going through so much stress, blaming something in her circle of concern. And yet when we actually went down with the root cause analysis, we found that the problem was within her circle of control. And so now we have started working with her to address the fear of failure. Remember, we talked about dream killers, and hers was just fear of failure. So Provia and anyone who is struggling with maintaining a habit, you may need to do a root cause analysis. Find out why exactly is it that you're failing to maintain a habit in spite of all of your good intentions. I hope that helps. So quickly reviewing what we did last week, remember we talked about, the week before we talked about our circle of control and circle of influence. And it is pointless if you know about control and influence, if you don't know what to do with the control and influence that you have. Last week we saw that we have so much control over so many things and a lot of influence over so many things. And we talked about how we can actually take advantage of these things that we have control and influence over. And we talked about one main thing that prevents us from exerting our control of influence, and that was reactive behavior. When there's, and this picture on the left is what we used. When there's a stimulus and you respond to it immediately without thinking, then you are a reactive person. We allow our moods to control us, our feelings to control us, the circumstances to control us. So we begin to be like animals, you know. Human beings are different than animals because human beings we're gifted with the ability to choose, the freedom to choose how we react. And that is what we call proactivity. Remember? And we said there are 4 unique human gifts: self-awareness. We have gone through self-awareness. We are doing, we started on our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, personal analysis. And that is all helping us with self-awareness, looking at what are our priorities, what is my personal priority, how am I doing in all the areas of priority. That is giving us self-awareness. And then we did imagination. When I asked you to think about where you want to be 10 years, 15 years from now, to plan for 5 years from now, to plan for 1 year from now, you're actually using your imagination. You're not yet there, but because you're a human being, you have the ability to actually draw a picture of where you want to be in future. Our conscience, we talked about the moral compass. Animals don't have a sense of right and wrong. Then we talked about our independent will. You have within you the ability to choose your reactions, to choose what you want to do. And we said, once you are aware of those 4 human gifts and you're taking advantage of them, then you become a proactive person. So in the next minute or so, let us review the homework that I gave you. Remember, last week I asked you to look at your wheel of life and all the areas where you did not score 10. I asked each person to look and ask themselves, is there a reactive attitude that I have that has contributed to why my scores are low? Can I have 2 people share what they found? Can I have 2 people? Pearl and your sisters, does one person want to share with us? What did you find? Did you find any reactive attitude issues going on in your life that is preventing you from having a perfect pizza? As we wait for Paula. Okay, can I have someone volunteer? Oh, okay, Paul. No volunteers? Emma, do you want to share with us? Hey guys, do you hear me?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to sort out something here. My apologies.
Okay, Irene?
Okay. I think let me share.
Yes, Paula.
I found that what's keeping me from having a perfect pizza is mainly I'm more reactive than I am proactive.
Can you give an example?
Most of my actions, like, okay, let's say for example in the area of siblings, yeah. One of my actions towards reaching a score of 10 is I had to engage them more. But when, okay, for example, I can try to like talk to my brother or my sister, but maybe they have something else going on and they don't necessarily show a positive attitude, then I say, I tried, there's nothing more I can do, or I just give up. So I think that's more on the reactive side. And after that, I give up. Let me say I give up.
Right.
I don't put in the proactive aspect of it. I don't try to find another approach to going about the situation or trying again some other time with something else. Yeah. Then
yes, go on, Paula. We hear.
same thing with like the health aspect and the friends aspect, I might set a particular goal for a day or for a week. But when I'm when I'm reflecting at the end of that day or that week, I find that maybe I haven't achieved whatever I wanted to achieve. And then my attitude is just like, oh, but I tried my best. I did, at least I did something. So I just give up on that. So basically, I found that I'm more reactive than I am proactive, and that is what is keeping me from having a perfect fit.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, as well. Thank you for being open and sharing. Have you come up with any plans about what you are going to do about it? Because remember, self-awareness is one thing, and what you have done is that you've gone through a journey of self-awareness, so you have found out that there are areas where you are reactive. The next thing you need to do is be proactive. What are you going to do about it? Have you come up with anything?
Let me say, I'm still in the process of making plans, coming up with those plans.
Okay, fine. Thank you for being honest with that. And I would encourage you, as you're coming up with those
Can I just?
Yes, yes, who is speaking? Emma? Yes, Emma.
Yes, that's with me. I'd still go with health. I would say when it comes to health for me, it's mostly around exercises, and honestly, I just feel like I'm just the queen of excuses. For me, that's it. So my reactive language is everything like, okay, yeah, so there are other ailments that I have. So if it's not that my knees are hurting, then it's this, but now I don't even have this working out, whatever. I don't have gear. I don't know. There's always something. But I feel like the only way to get rid of it is just to start, I don't know, I'm still trying to get myself there, and I'm sorry, because I didn't get the what I wanted. I was still following because I was hoping to see if I had done it right. But that's my reactive language. So it's the excuses. It's my knees hurting, but now my back is hurting, but then it's too far, then this happens. So
right.
That's what happens with health.
Right, and that's you're accurate with that. So you when you look at it, you are speaking in reactive language. My back is hurting, there's nothing I can do about that. I don't have gear, so I just can't do it. And so now you're going to need to consciously ask yourself, what am I doing about it? And to guide you, and also Paula, to guide you, what I was about to say before Emma spoke was take advantage of this list of proactive language that we have created. Let your statements be, let me look, for instance, Emma says she's not doing exercise because her back is hurting or her knee is hurting. And your question would be, is there a different approach I can choose? Or I don't have gear to do exercise. Let me look at the alternatives that I have. Paula talked about her siblings being busy with their own things, and yet she's trying to build a relationship with them. Can you look for alternatives? Can you find other methods to reach out to them? So in other words, now I want you, that you have become aware that you are reactive in certain areas of your life. The next thing you need to do is take action, be proactive. Change all these to reactive language. Stop, do not let yourself not act simply because of things that you can control, but come up with proactive language. What are the alternatives that I have? Can I choose to be different? Can I control the way I'm reacting? Can I control my feelings? Can I choose to do something? You want to exercise, so you tell yourself, I'm going to choose to exercise even if my back is hurting. Or maybe I need to go and see a doctor about my back, So let's, now the next part of your homework, if you haven't done it, is for each of the areas where you discover that you're reactive, come up with something proactive and begin to implement it. So friends, if we don't implement what we are learning, then it's going to end up being a feel-good self-help session. So I really encourage us, move beyond self-awareness. We now know and then we now we know about ourselves. So the next thing we need to do, come up with proactive language and then take action. Okay, then let's move.
Just
Yeah.
to,
Yes.
just to add on, I think we should also be consistent in our action, because we might find the proactive way of approaching certain things. We might know the proactive way and maybe try it like one time or two times, and sometimes it may fail, but we should be consistent in our actions. Don't give up.
Absolutely.
Keep trying, and eventually we'll get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Don't give up, keep trying. And if you find that for some reason, no matter how much you try, you're failing, do a root cause analysis. Why is it that I am failing? Is the time I'm choosing wrong? Is the method I'm choosing wrong? Is there a method that would work better for me? So, you know, remember when I drew that circle, when we talked about inertia, it's a circle. So you decide to take action, you review your action. And that is why next week in our second last session, next week, we are going to talk about the monitoring and evaluation. Remember, we said this is a program about strategic planning for our lives. And there has to be an M&E or monitoring and evaluation component. So it's a circular process. So you monitor, am I doing well? If I'm doing well, continue. Is there a problem? Am I not doing well? So go back to the drawing board. What is happening? How can I change it? Paula, thank you very much for that input. The other homework was what to do with your superpowers and super tools. Last week, the previous week, I asked you to list 10 superpowers and super tools for each of your areas of priority. Remember? And after listing them last week, I was like, it's not enough to become self-aware. We need to move on to the next step. What do we do with them? I asked you to look at your superpowers, which are your strengths, and decide on how you can build each of these superpowers. And then I asked you to look at the super tools, which are the opportunities around you that can help you achieve your goals in your areas of priority, and work out how to leverage these different opportunities. Can we have one person share with us how they have decided to, or how they have started to build on the superpower that they discovered that they had? Share with us that superpower and tell us how this week you have started building on that superpower. Anyone? Brenda, you want to share?
Miriam, I haven't yet reached that point.
Okay. Irene, you want to share? Anyone, whoever is willing to share, just open up and share with us, please.
Okay, so for me, one of my superpowers is I like helping others. So I've kind of been on a self-discovery journey to find out how I can use that.
Right.
Yes, to better, other people's lives, and yes.
Right. Have you tried?
Yes.
Have you actually given it a try?
Well, in that way, I think since I like helping others, I also like sort of counseling, helping people when they are going through, difficult times.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
And Irene, have you been able to place that superpower in any of your priorities? So when you look at your wheel of life, your areas of priority, and that big stone exercise we did, what you discovered was your most important area. Have you found a way in which you can use that superpower in any of those areas?
I'm still on that journey of discovering myself. Yes.
Right, and that's important. And I ask that because you've discovered that that is a strength that you have. And if you remember, if you were here last week when Provia shared her experience with failing to say no, so you find that you have a superpower, but if you have not locked it into your priorities, you're going to expand it in areas that are not your priorities. So Irene, you'll find you like helping people. So every time someone needs help, you're helping them. You're helping at work, you're helping at home, you're helping in the community. And you find that you may be spending so much energy using your superpower in areas that are not your priority. And then you wonder why your pizza is not growing, why it's remaining uneven. So it's really important that when you have discovered the superpower, use it to build in the areas of your priority. That is really, really important. That is, yeah, so that's a very important thing. So for everybody, when you find something that is a strength that you have, a natural ability that you have, or a skill that you have learned, now apply it to the areas that are your priority. Because otherwise it will end up being wasted. Either it won't be used or you will be expending it in areas that are not of your priority. I'll give you an example of a movie that I like and we shared with the children, The Queen of Katwe. Some of you may have watched that. So this girl was a disadvantaged girl living in a slum, found out that she had a natural ability at chess. She could have very easily stopped playing chess or continued playing it at a small level. But this girl used that natural ability she had to gain entry into all the schools she went to. She was on scholarship simply because of that superpower that she had. When she looked around her, she didn't have the opportunities that many of us have. She looked around and her family was a weakness because they were extremely poor. Her living in a slum was a weakness, they were poor. So in other words, what most of us have as opportunities, parents who can send us to school, she didn't have. But then she had a super tool who was her coach. You remember, tools are things that are external to us that can help us go to our goal. So her coach, after discovering this ability in her, helped her to grow that skill better. So she built on that superpower that she had and exposed her to even coaches that were better than him. So she was and took her to tournaments, starting from the small tournaments in the slum to schools and then internationally. So in this story, we see someone who discovers her superpower and builds on it. And by the way, it just wasn't her coach. She used to read a lot about chess. So she learned that she had this gift, but she didn't leave it at gift level. Remember the story about the servants who were given talents? She built on the superpower that she had. And then she leveraged on her coach to be able to grow her skill even better. And so through that, she was able to get scholarships. And right now she's studying, I believe, in the US or in the UK, simply by using her superpower and by using her super tools. So once again, when you discover your strengths and your opportunities, find out how you can use them in your areas of priority. I hope that is clear. Okay. Can one person share with us a super tool they've discovered and how they can leverage that? One person, Provia, have you discovered anything? Yes, Moses, I see your hand is up. Okay, Provia, speak, and then Moses will speak.
Like on my wheel of life for the spiritual life, I had a bad score. So, and I discovered my weakness as well. Like I'll start from the weakness, then I go to the tools which I'm leveraging on to improve on my communication with God.
Right.
So things like having spiritualness, then procrastination, and but knowing that I'm a child of God and I have a religious affiliation, I have attained some sacraments in my religion, baptism, confirmation, and there are religious tools, religious prayers I can use. So I'm using these tools to leverage on them to improve on my communication with God.
Okay, thank you for that. So once again, probably brings a good point that we need to remember. Our spiritual relationship with God is actually an opportunity. Remember, I said God does not force ourselves on us. So that is an opportunity that you can take advantage of if you're a believer, or you can decide not to take advantage of. So she has chosen to take advantage of that. I'll share with you my personal experience in that component. Many times people ask me how comes I'm not shy, and I tell them that personally, when I was in A level, I decided that I'm going to use God as my tool to not be shy or to not even be afraid of exams. So when I'm going to go to a stage to speak to people, or I'm going to speak to someone who is senior to me, I normally say, Holy Spirit, come and take control. And so somehow I have moved my weakness of being shy and given it to God. And as a result of that, I'm not shy to talk in front of anyone, to talk with anybody. I'm not afraid of exams, for instance, because I've leveraged on what for me is an opportunity that I have through God. So that is a personal experience that I have as far as leveraging that tool. Moses, you had something to say? If not, and if there is no question, we can move on to the next. Remember, if you have a question or you have something you want to share with us, just unmute yourself and speak. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Last week, I asked you to look, last week I asked you to look at the threats and weaknesses in our lives. So we talked about the weaknesses, and weaknesses are those things that come from within us. They are within us. Like you're shy, you're a procrastinator, you have a bad attitude. All those are weaknesses, things that come in from within us. And then there are things that are threats to us. We gave the example of the 30 pieces of silver of Judas, things that are external to us, but they're working against our achieving our goals in the areas that we consider to be priorities. And under that, one of the things I asked us to look at was temperaments. And temperaments, our temperament is what you're born with, the person that you are born as. And I gave the example for people who are parents or people who have siblings. You'll realize that even if you were brought up in the same house and even went to the same school, you and your siblings are very different. Even identical twins are very different, simply because there's that personality that we are born with that is called our temperaments. So when you do your read about temperaments and do a temperament analysis for yourself, you find that there are things where you're strong because it is your nature. And then there are areas where you're weak because that is who you are. There are people who make friends more easily than others. When you end up in public, you go out, you talk to people, you've seen those people. They come in, yay, shouting. And then there are those who simply sneak into a room, they slide into a room. You can barely see that they have come in. It's not because they want to be that way sometimes, but it's simply because that is how they are made. I remember there's a lady, she's a woman now, I went to school with from the time we were in P1 up to the time we finished medical school. We were classmates. Many times I felt like God put her in my life. I don't know to do what. This lady was a very quiet, calm, controlled person. You would rarely hear her voice. She was always very quiet, very serious, very neat. And me, on the other hand, even when I would tell myself today I'm not going to talk in class, I would end up talking, shouting, playing, very hyperactive. And I always wondered, how does she do it? When they ask for someone who needs to do something, I'm the first one to put up my hand. I always had an opinion about everything. And this lady was quiet. She would think about it before she speaks, really the perfect kind of person. And later on, when I got to read about temperaments, I realized that that is how we are made, She is made that way. I am made the way that I am made. So it's really important to find out what your temperaments are, because then you can find out where you're strong and build on that, and find out where you're weak, and either find out where you're weak and work towards improving on that, or look for opportunities that you can use to leverage, because some of those weaknesses are hard or almost impossible to overcome. So did people do their temperament tests? Did anyone get the book? What was your experience? Anyone did the temperament analysis?
I did the test. This is Emma.
Yes, Emma.
I did the test. Fortunately for me, I think I've known previously, so I'm aware.
Right.
So yes, I'm a melancholic. So I've also, I came across many years after I first did them. I knew about getting the major one. I heard about how you can have the two. You get the major two.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a male son. So but its majority is the melancholic, and then I'm a sanguine next.
Okay, that's interesting. And Emma, do you see how that links to your reactive nature?
Yeah.
So, and actually, when you were speaking about your reactive nature, I was like, that sounds quite melancholy, So many excuses, exactly.
worrying, what, all that.
But you can find a million excuses for one thing. So you find that that is actually your nature, that is how you're made. So you have to, it's going to be harder for you to overcome that. But when you're aware of it, then you are more conscious as you try to work against it. Because, you know, by nature, this is how I am, this is how I'm reactive. So I should consciously work towards changing that. So that's great. Thank you, Emma. Anyone else? Yes?
Maybe if I could also just say, I found it hard. I don't know if it's a mindset renewal that's needed, but I struggled with finding super tools. There are things that I see, like you even pointed out even when we went through it, that I think I would take for granted. Things that you mentioned, like, is it I went to good schools? That's something that I think would keep, you know, my mind. So I'd sit down and be like, now what super tool do I have? I don't know. I don't know if it's also a male thing as well. I know it's that whole being pessimistic lies in there. But
We can
yeah,
plan a session
it
together
was hard.
we can plan a session together and walk you through them, because you will be surprised at how many super tools you have in your life. You know, sometimes you'll find that it's easy for you to get a job or a promotion simply because of the school you went to 30 years or 20 years ago, or because of the friend that you had when you were in, not even a friend, a classmate that you had in school. You were not really close friends, but you were classmates. The power that you can actually call that person up and that person will speak on your behalf, that is a super tool. But many times, because we are not conscious, and that is why I encourage us to write these things down, then suddenly you realize there's so much working to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. You may have helped someone in the past, and that is, we call that social capital. You helped someone so many years ago, you've forgotten about it, but that is a super tool that you have. It can help you get onto another level, you know? So it's really important that we write this down so we can visualize them, and that is why I insist on doing that. But if you want to, we can plan another session on the side and work on looking at your super tools, because they're definitely there. Okay, anyone else wants to share? What did you find when you did your temperament test? Probia.
So I found I scored highly in phlegmatic and secondly in the sanguine. And when I read, I didn't read through the whole book, but I just read the preview on the on the what was that? On the spirit control temperament, where they talk about how God can transform our natural weaknesses into strong, dynamic Christians.
Right.
And I look forward to reading it in detail and finish it.
Right, thank you. I really encourage us to get the book and read it, because doing the test is good and reading the summary, but when you read the book, you actually understand the background of temperaments. You understand why we have these temperaments and how they work. Find them, find those strengths, build on them, and then find the weaknesses, and either find a way to overcome them, or to find your super tools and use them to leverage to overcome those weaknesses. When I did the test for myself, I found out that I'm choleric and sanguine. So that for me was very eye-opening. I understood why I tend to be loud sometimes, why I have an opinion over everything, why I try to get things done even when people don't want to get them done, why I'm bothered by, you know, and loops that are not closed. So it's really, really important to do it. Read the book and understand the way you are. It also helps you to understand the people that are around you, and therefore the way you react to them. Remember, I'm using the word reactive from the being proactive and reactive. So it's also important for you to understand them, because when you understand the people that are close to you by their temperaments, then you're more proactive with the way you interact with them. So please take the time and read the book. The book, they're available in most of the bookshops that are around. Aristoc, Book Point, wherever you go, you'll be able to find them. La Fontaine, they're there. And those who are students, take advantage of your parents, leverage your parents' super tools. Remember, ask them to give you money to buy this book. Those who have been saving their pocket money, I know you've eaten all of it because of the COVID, but if you have any money saved, just go out and buy that book. That for me is a book that is an investment to my life. Okay, so today's session, I wanted us to start with what we call managing my time. This I find to be very important because many times I work with people, we create this perfect strategic plan for life. And then when we come to an M&E session, we are exactly where we stopped the last time. And then when I ask people what happened, they're like, you know what, I got really busy. Time these days goes very fast. Like sometimes someone is winding the clock, right? I hear time goes very fast these days. One time it is beginning of the year, then next thing you know that it's Christmas already. So because of that, I developed a component called managing my time. If we don't manage our time, then all these things we are doing are going to be for nothing. We'll wake up 10 to 15 years down the road and look back at the very nice ideas that we had in mind, look at our journals, very well written, but we're exactly where we were on the 29th of August, 2020. And because of that, I have a session dedicated to managing time. Okay, so that's one thing that we all know about time, but would be nice to review. First of all, time is money. Time is a currency. I believe time is a currency. And it's one of those currencies that are very fair. First of all, we are all given the same amount. Whether you're Bill Gates or Museveni or Bobby Wine or Miriam or Brenda or Pearl or Queen, you're given the same amount of time. At midnight every day, God dishes out to us a bundle of 24 hours. You can break it down if you want. You know how you break down money from 50K to the 50 shilling notes. You can decide to, let me just admit two people here. So you can decide to break it up to even the seconds that you're given, or you can take it as a bundle, but everyone is given a total of 24 hours at midnight every day. No matter how rich or poor you are, no matter which country you live in, no matter where you are in relation to the Greenwich Mean Time, we are given a bundle of 24 hours. Just think of it like a bundle of money. Whether you're 90 years old, whether you're a newborn baby, you're given 24 hours. God doesn't sit there and say, this person who is 43 years old is running out of time, let me give 26 hours, and then the baby doesn't need it, I'll give the baby 22 hours. Everyone is given the same amount of time. And one thing about that currency called time is that we cannot store it up for the future. You know, when you're given money, real cash, let's say you're a student, your parent gives you pocket money. These days, I'm told schools say a minimum of 50K. In my day, it was a minimum of 5,000. When they give you that 50K, you can decide, you know, I'm going to save this money. Let me use 10K. I'll keep 40,000 and use it during the holidays. Or when we go out on a school trip, we'll buy chicken along the way. You can store, you save your money like that. Those of us who are working, you can decide to put aside money and say, I'm going to save this money to pay for a course that I want to do next year. And nothing will happen to that money. But with a currency called time, you can't do that. I cannot say, okay, now it's 9:30, let me just store up 1 hour. I'll use that at midnight tonight. I will use up the 1 hour that I stored in the morning. Time doesn't work like that. The other thing is you cannot lend it. No matter how much you love someone, for instance, I cannot lend my children some time. Or my children can't say, our mom is growing old, we want her to live for a much longer time. Let's lend her a week of our time. You can't lend money. I mean, you can't lend the currency that is time. We cannot pause it. You cannot press pause and say, okay, now let me go and sleep. I was doing something really important. I know the deadline is tomorrow, but I'm going to pause time, go sleep and do some other important things, and then I'll come back and continue from where I left. With that currency, you can't. With money, you can. You can say, okay, let me first stop using this money for now. I'll continue using it next week. And the funny thing with this currency called money is how we decide to use the currency each day determines how little or how much it will feel like we have in future. Does that make sense? The way I use my time today determines how much time I'll feel like I have in future or how little time. I'll give an example of a student. If you're the kind of student who, when you go to school, begins reading from beginning of term, I was that kind of student, so I'm sharing my experience. If you begin reading from beginning of term, when it's a week to exams, you will not feel like there's little time left. You will feel like you have a lot of time. You're actually like, why did they even bring the exams closer? Because you've been reading since beginning of term. But if you're the student who waits for the examination timetable to come up before you start reading, believe you me, you'll feel like each day has only 3 hours. So the way you choose to spend your time each day determines how it will feel in future, whether you feel like you have a lot of time or whether you feel like you have little time. Even with our relationships, those who are parents, you know this very well. If you have not spent time building a relationship with your child when they are younger, as they get older, we begin to panic. Oh, the child is about to get to secondary school, they'll go to boarding school, then they're gone. So you feel now like there's not enough time, so you have to work so hard to make up for time that is lost. But if you've been consistent with this relationship, then even as they're getting older, they're about to leave home, you know that you have done your best and you're like, how can we continue using our time that we have profitably? It also happens as your parents age. If you didn't have a relationship with them earlier on, now you're worried they may be about to die and you're trying to catch up. And catching up is practically impossible. So how you choose to use your time, the bundle of 24 hours that you're given each day, how you choose to use it every day determines how you're going to feel about time in future. So I thought this should come out. This is a baseline. That's how I look at time. Once again, if you have something to share, please unmute yourself and speak, either ask or share your experience. So I want to ask people on here, maybe 1 or 2 people who are willing to share with us. How do you feel like your time management is going? Just look at your life in general. How are you managing your time? Are you happy with it? Are you 50-50? Are you not happy? Just share with us your experience. Anyone wants to share, Tracy?
My time management, as of now, I'm happy with it because I get to, when I set out things to do during the day, I actually accomplish them. So yeah, I'm happy with it because the phone tracker helps me. So most of the time that I move from there, I find that I'm actually putting it in execution, like going back to my wheel of life, looking at what can I be doing now with the time that I have. So yeah, for me, I'm happy with how my time is being managed.
Excellent. That's good to know. And please keep it up. And remember, everybody, you have 24 hours in a day. You have your priorities. Split them up to make sure that every area of your priority gets some of that time in a day. Okay? Anyone else? I want a guy. Moses, tell us, how do you feel about your time management now? And there's nothing wrong with feeling bad about it. We are here to work together through this. Moses? Simonette? Guys, don't be afraid to share. Okay, the young people here, I'm going to organize for you a session on confidence building. We need to be able to speak in public, whether they are young people or older people that are around us. Okay, let's move on because of, let's move on if no one is willing to share. Okay, what time management tools and plans have you found that work for you?
Sorry.
Yes?
Oh, sorry, Miriam.
Yes?
That's because you wanted a gentleman.
Okay. Proceed, please go ahead.
I was just about to speak, but then you asked for a gentleman.
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Yes, I'm also one of those. For me, I feel I'm still struggling, but just like the previous speaker, I really credit the phone tracker. The phone tracker is really helping me. But in the same way that you said, the time saved, you need to find ways to apportion it. So like when I'm at work, like say this week I've been on leave. So it's been everything jumping into my space now. But I find at least now when I know those hours are blocked off, that I can even tell, I felt good having to even be able to tell my workmates that, you know what, between this time, as in the morning, the whole morning, my phone is blocked off. If you need to reach me, you can only call me, you know, I'm off WhatsApp.
And that's excellent.
And
In
so,
control.
yeah, so when I have work, I found that I was really more productive. But in the days, like I've said, when it's not structured now, like when I've been on leave this week, it's been everything and anything just getting in. So it's like it just went back for me. I remember what you said. You've saved the time, fine, but you still need to intentionally plan for it. Otherwise, you'll still just waste it, and other things will get on in it, and you won't get much accomplished.
Absolutely.
I've also found that, yes, the time that if for any reason I get up maybe any later in the day, it affects my flow and my time management. So yeah, I know for me now it will be like still, oh God, excuses again. The baby was up all night, she slept late, so she usually sleeps towards morning. That's when I also want to try to catch some sleep. But God forbid if I stay in a little longer, then I find my day just gets messed up.
Thank you very much,
That's
Emma.
when
And one powerful thing that you mentioned is you've taken control, telling your workmates that, I'm not available during this time. That is what we want, people to be able to take control of of the direction that our lives are going. And you bring in a good example when I say you need to apportion time depending on your areas of priority. Look at your wheel of life. And it is intentional that I bring time management towards the end, because if I bring it at the beginning, it's hard for you to fit it into the things that will learn subsequently. So one thing about time management is you may suddenly be able to manage your time, but when you look at your wheel of life, you'll find the areas that are easier for you. And then you will move all the time to that one area. And then as a result, your pizza still is not going to grow. You're going to have one or two very beautiful slices and others that keep getting eaten further back. So that is why I say you need to apportion the time to all the different areas that are priority in your life, so that there's a balance that is happening. So you put some for work, put some for family, put some for planning for your finances, put some for your spiritual life, and even areas that are difficult. So normally, for some reason, people find that the personal growth area is the hardest, because like I said, you're looking into the 10 years down the road, 5 years, 1 year down the road, and you don't have a very clear picture of what you want to do. So it's easy to not apportion time to that, but we need to intentionally apportion time to that. Brenda, I see your hand is up.
Yes. Miriam, I have a question. So when you say we need that in a day, in our 24-hour clock, or we can say, okay, this week, I'll make sure that somehow all my different priorities are covered.
So that's a good question, Brenda. So many times people who are beginning, because they've not been doing this at all, I challenge them to do it on a daily basis. But as you get used to it, then you can split it out. So for instance, let's say you're trying to build a relationship with your parents. There's a gentleman I was talking to and he said, I don't call my father at all. We don't have anything to talk about. So for that kind of person, I'll challenge you on a daily basis, make a phone call, even if it's for 1 or 2 minutes. And then as you get more used to it, then you can say, okay, within my week, I'm going to make sure I apportion this amount of time to talking to my dad. I hope that makes sense. So while we're doing this program, because I know this program is a finite time, and I want by the time we end, everyone has actually started doing something for every slice of what is priority in their lives, I challenge you to do it on a daily basis. As soon as the habit has built, then you can begin to say, okay, within this week, this is the amount of time I'm going to apportion to this is the amount of time I'm going to apportion to that. But the areas of your life where you need to apportion time daily. For instance, if you're a student, there must be time every day that you apportion to studying. There is no negotiation about that. You have to apportion time to study. If you're a parent, you must apportion time to your children on a daily basis. There is no negotiation. If you're married, there has to be time you apportion to your relationship with your spouse on a daily basis. So there are things where there is no weekly batching. You can't say, okay, I'm going to ignore my spouse until Thursday between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. It has to be a weekly thing. You can't do that for your children as well. and for things like your studies. So there are things where for the rest of your life, there has to be time apportioned daily, but then there are things that you can apportion an amount of time to work on per week. Brenda, does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I want us to look at this table. Some of you may have come across this before, but I just want us to all look at it together now. What do you think about, you see my pointer? What do you think about the items that are in this first square? What is the nature of those items? What is their nature? Anyone can unmute themselves and answer. We are looking at this: last minute reading for an exam, pulling an all-nighter for a deadline, a sick child, personal illness, broken water pipe in the house. What is the nature of these activities?
I think they are very stressful.
They are stressful.
Yes,
and
because it's last minute, there's no time, there are emergencies.
Great, you bring that out. Last minute, no time, emergencies, you need to deal with them now. They are stressing you, you cannot ignore them. You have a sick child, you can't say, you know what, I'll come back in the evening to handle that. You deal with it. Exactly. You have a terrible headache, you can't say, you know what, let me deal with that headache 2 days from now because I'm working on something now. There's a water pipe that is broken in the house, you need to deal with it now. The chemistry paper is tomorrow. You cannot say, I'll read for it 2 days later. You have to do it right now. So they are urgent things, they are stressful, you have to deal with them now. What about in this second box? Spending time with family, planning a study schedule early in the term, working on your personal development plan. Remember, we say this is 15, something you want 15 years from now. Exercising. What do you think about those activities?
I think it's very comfortable.
I like that. I was going to say you even feel chill as you're reading them now, right? Your heart's racing, exactly. Anyone else? What do you think about them?
There's a likelihood to postpone doing them.
Yeah, these are things nothing is going to happen if you don't do them right now, you know? Spending time with family member, you can be like, you know what, let's just plan we'll do it in December around Christmas time. So 12 months go by, you do it Christmas time. Planning to study, you're like, you know what, we are still in COVID, no one knows when the school is opening anyway. I'll start planning when they announce opening time. As in, you're chill when you read these things. Okay, excellent. What about in this square here?
I think they are destructive.
Excellent.
I think they are destructive.
Yeah, excellent. They're destructive, but they're not really pressing. You know, if your phone is ringing, you can choose to answer or not. Although if you're a parent like me and you're in the office and at the time your child should be in school, you see the school ringing, then it moves up here. Because you're like, why are they calling? My child is at school at 10 o'clock, is the child sick? But a normal phone call, you look and, well, this is a friend that is calling. It's important, you look at it, it seems important, but it needs your attention now, but it's not that urgent. Meetings, or someone stops by to say hi. They are distracting things. You can choose to do it, you can choose not to do it, but it's there. It's like a mosquito that is buzzing around your ears, right? You can choose to let it go, you can slap it. It's up to you. What about this last one here? This.
They are relaxing, they are hobbies, yeah, they are entertaining.
Right. There's also a chill, you know, you're reading them and you feel all chilled out, right? You're surfing the net. Let me check what has happened to Black Panther today. Let's check and see what is happening to Beyonce, you know, those kind of things. Watching series, you're like, what's happening on Game of Thrones now? Video gaming, yes, you just chill, you know? Okay, so let's look at what these mean in terms of our daily lives. And all of us have these aspects. If you think about your life in a 24-hour period, there's almost something happening in these areas. Okay, let's just have a look at the next slide. So this box that we've shown is actually called the time management matrix. It will actually So this is what it looks like. So in quadrant 1, which we've talked about, so it is broken down into what we call quadrants. Quadrants for those, it's really 4. So the 4 areas I need to look at are quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Things that are in quadrant 1, we have already said they are urgent and important. It's crisis, really, stress, crisis, you need to do it. It's a do or die quadrant. You have to do it now, you have to do it, you cannot postpone it till later. So things that are in this quadrant are urgent and they are important. And the question is, what do we do with them? So they need to be dealt with immediately. You have no choice when you have a pressing issue that is urgent and important. Then let's look at the next one. I'm skipping 2 for now for a reason. We'll come to that. When you look at quadrant 3, those are things that we call interruptions. That phone call that is coming, it doesn't look like an urgent phone call. The meeting that has been scheduled, you know, it's not an emergency COVID meeting or something. A friend that has stopped by to say hi, interruptions that happen. You see an email popping up. So those, they're quadrant 3, they are urgent, but they're not important. Urgent because, for instance, if you don't pick up your phone now, you're going to miss that call. But if you think about it, it actually is not important, right? So what do we do about those things? We need to minimize them or eliminate them. I remember I used to sit in an office where, you know, these open shared spaces. And so there's always someone coming by to say hi. Hey, how are you doing today? I haven't seen you in a while. What are you up to? That kind of talk. And after some time, I was like, you know, I can't deal. I had to ask to be moved to another space where I can come into work, hide in there, and no one knows that I'm around until I've told them that I'm there. The other quadrant is quadrant 4. We've talked about that. It's trivia, things that keep you busy, surfing the internet, being on social media, talking to friends, watching movies, video gaming. They are trivia, it keeps you busy, but then they're time wasters. That group is really called time wasters. They are both unimportant and not urgent. They are not, I mean, since when did surfing the internet become urgent? So it is not urgent, it is not important. It's full of things that you don't really need. So we need to minimize them or eliminate them completely. Eliminate, so the question is, I know someone is already asking this, but there are things in these groups that are important. So for instance, if my mom was calling me, I look at the phone, I know that I don't think she has an emergency right now, but because my mom is in one of my slices of things that are priority, I'll answer that phone call. So minimize it in terms that I'm not talking to her every single hour of the day, but I'm not going to stop the relationship from going on because she actually is important in my life. I hope that makes sense. And the same with quadrant 4. I'm saying don't stop watching movies, don't stop hanging out with your friends, but you have to ask yourself, how much time am I devoting to this? And then we move to quadrant 4. Quadrant 4 has things that are both urgent. Sorry, hold on. Sorry about that. Let's go back. Hey, what's happening? Just a minute, I'm trying to take us back to. Okay, so in quadrant 4, quadrant 2, the things that are there are not urgent. Remember when we were reading them, we had this sense of being chilled out, right? Chillax and relax, because they're not urgent. But then look at that, they are really important. Relationship building, finding new opportunities in life. You're in a job that you feel is not paying you enough, so you need to look for another job that can pay better, or you need to study to improve your CV and get a promotion where you'll be paid more. Planning for the long term. What are we going to do when the term begins? Students who have been on indefinite holidays, what are you going to do when the new term begins? Planning for that. Preventive activities. How am I going to make sure we have a good relationship with my children in future and we don't have a resentful relationship? If you take the time to read, you hear that in the Western world, there are a number of children who are now divorcing their parents. They're going to court and actually divorcing their parents, or they're becoming estranged. You hear someone saying, I've not talked to my parent in the last 20 years. So we need to be having some preventive activities right now. Personal growth. Once again, I say personal growth seems like so far in the future, and because of that, it's easy to just sit back and not do anything. recreation. So those are things that are not urgent. You can keep postponing them for as long as you want while dealing with everything else that is unimportant or urgent and important. But the fact is that these are the most important things in our lives. They don't require immediate attention, but we need to plan for them, and we need to focus on these for long-term achievement of our goals. So if you look at your areas of priority, you'll find that in that pizza that you drew, every single thing in that pizza falls in quadrant 2. Life would be okay if you did nothing about them, at least up to now. And that is why many times you find that people have not been looking at their wheel of life, because everything in there is not urgent, even if it is important. So by nature, we keep pushing it back and focusing on quadrant 1 and wasting time on quadrants 3 and quadrants 4. So this is a very important aspect that we need to look at in terms of time management. As we manage our time, where are we placing emphasis? Any questions before I move on? Because now I'm going to move on to your homework. Okay. So just a bit of a background. So this time management principle came from what is called the Eisenhower principle. Eisenhower was a president of the United States, and he's famous for this quote that he made. He said, "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." Remember, I've said when you look at your wheel of life, you will notice, and I can bet my money on this, everything that is on your wheel of life is not urgent, but it is important, extremely important. And then if you look at the things that are urgent, many of them are not that important if you look at the big picture of life. So that's an important thing to do. But if you look at your wheel of life and notice that the things that are there are things that should have been in quadrant 2, then it tells you there's a problem with your time management. You're reading at the last minute for exams, you're playing catch up in your relationships, as in everything is now a catch up basis. You're suddenly realizing I now need to start saving money, and yet you're like older, you're my age, or you're in your 50s or 60s, you've never been saving money before. It says that in the past, you did not spend time in your quadrant 2. So we need to go back to our quadrant 2, look at our wheel of life, and begin to make the things that are in there urgent as well. Make it urgent in terms of planning for them and beginning to take actions towards achieving them. You want them to remain in quadrant 2, never make it become an urgency where it is a do or die today, but you need to plan for them and actually begin taking action towards achieving them. Okay. So I've talked about that. So think about this principle in relation to your life. And the way you're going to do that is by looking at the wheel of life and the big rocks exercise that we already did. So this is your homework for this week as well. I want each person, I'm going to send you our toolkit for this, but I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, where am I spending my time? Before you start making any actions to correct things, just in reality, ask yourself, where am I spending your time? I've left lines at the bottom, but doesn't mean you should limit them to only 3. Write as many as possible. Look at your life, okay? In the quadrant 1, things that are urgent and important. Am I dealing with so many crises? What crises are there? Have deadlines become a crisis? A deadline becomes a crisis if it was given to you at the last minute. But most times we know about these deadlines way in advance, but because we don't spend time in here, we end up moving them to here. Looming exams. Everyone knows that there's going to be an exam when you start a course. People who are in S4, for instance, they didn't tell you beginning of this year that you're going to do Cantab this year. You knew that when you joined S1. Same thing with S6. Those who are doing courses in the university and beyond, you knew at the beginning that there was going to be an assessment. So if you have looming exams in here, that means you had a problem in here. You want to move some of these things over to here. So write down in your life, what are those things that are crises? How much time are you spending on those actual ones? So do you have a deadline that is coming up? Are you saving now as a crisis approach? Write those things in there. Are you in S4 beginning to read S1 work because you didn't study the last 3 years? That becomes a crisis, so write them down. Then go to quadrant 2. what are the things in there that, so what are the things in your life that need to be in quadrant 2? And already giving you, I'm giving you, Sassy, for the exam, everything on your wheel of life and in the big rocks exercise should be in this area. Then go to quadrant 3. What are those things that are interrupting you daily? Those things that are urgent but not important. List them down as well. Unimportant meetings that you're attending, those emails that you keep replying to, other people's minor issues. There's actually someone called Steve Covey said, in this section, that is where people's poor planning end up becoming your emergency. Those of us who work, sometimes your boss is stressing you to get something done because the deadline has reached, simply because they planned poorly. They didn't tell you about the deadline, or they kept procrastinating planning for the event. So look in this area, what are those things that are interrupting you all the time? And like Emma said, sometimes it is your workmates, and you can tell them, you know what, I'm not available from this time to this time. So look at the things in your life that are interruptions. And then finally, what are those things that are distracting you? These, if you notice, are things that are in areas of your complete control. You choose to make them a distraction. So look at your life. What are those things that are a distraction in your life right now? And once again, this should be your gut feeling. When you sit down, the answers are there. Your brain knows. Because remember the open loop again, your brain knows where you're wasting time and what you need to be doing. So sit down, and the instant response that comes is what you write down for each of those quadrants. So I'm going to send you the tool to help direct you in this work. So finally, we move back to our cell phone tracking. I'm crazy about this because I know how much cell phones are taking valuable time from our lives. Those of you who downloaded the app that I asked you to use, as soon as you leave this session today, I want you to go to the section that where you can see how much time you spent on the phone in 1 week. You'll be surprised. Someone was telling me she looked at hers and it said 25 hours. Do you know what 25 hours is? That is your bundle of time, your currency for 1 day plus some of the next day. So I want you to go now, look at that app, because if you've been using it, you know that it can show you how much time you've spent in a day, how much you've spent in a particular amount of time. So check how much time did you spend on your phone last week. It's going to show you the total amount of time. And since we are on the last week of August, we started this on the 1st of August, I want you to see how much time you have spent on your phone this month. And let me know how much time that is. Please send me an email and let me know what you found. It's a huge revelation. Just let me know what you have found. Finally, we are continuing with this homework that we started on week 1, tracking our phones. Now look this week at what your top 3 most used apps were. Most used apps, I mean, so I think it was Tracy who said she started doing exercise. So that last week I asked you to remove that app from from being, from having its time counted among the unwisely spent time. So look at the top 3 apps where you spent time unwisely. Look at how much time was there and reduce it by 20% for each of them. So once again, if it is WhatsApp where you spend 60 minutes, 10% of 60 is 6, 20% of 60 is 12. Remove 12 minutes from WhatsApp this week. You can set that up to reduce the time by that amount of time, and replace those 12 minutes to something else. Maybe reading a book, maybe studying, maybe making a phone call to someone who is important to you in your circle. Provia, please don't say yes to another person's activity and give that 12 minutes to it, okay? It has to be something that is within your area of priority. So write the replacement action, tick daily or draw that cross whenever you're successful if you're using our habit builder. And well, if you want to talk about it, you can next week when we meet again, I would invite you to share with us your experience. So that is what I had for you today. Anyone has anything to share?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
So I was was thinking about our phone tracker.
Uh-huh.
Usually we have the period between morning and evening. So that time can be used to be productive. And then there is that period when you are and can do with your phone. So you need to say personally, 7 p.m. and the time I go to bed. I don't still find anything anything like being productive. So in most cases I turn onto my phone and
So Moses, what time did you say that is?
calculate the hours on WhatsApp.
The time between what and what?
Pardon?
What time did you say you spend time on your phone on your 3 hours on WhatsApp?
I think in the evening around 6.
Look, around 6 o'clock you spend you find you.
I spend most on my phone.
Okay, so you're chilling on your phone. Okay, so you're chilling on your phone for about 3 or 4 hours in the evening because you've been very productive during the day.
I spend almost 3 hours on WhatsApp between 7 p.m. until midnight.
Okay.
So I go to bed.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone has any response to what Moses has said? He said you've spent a day being very productive, and so between 7 p.m. and midnight, he can even surf the internet will be on WhatsApp until, yeah, for 3-4 hours.
For me, I would say he deserves
And
it.
that's because I don't usually find other things.
Okay, so Irene says
If he has been productive during the day, I mean, at the end you can unwind, but I'm not sure, like, I had a question in relation to that, like, how important is that relaxation time? You know, life can be very busy also and stressful, and you need that time to unwind. So what is too much, you know? Yes.
Okay, thank you, Irene, and thank you. Okay, Moses and Irene, thank you. Anyone wants to chip in before I respond?
I feel that during the day, most of the time we give to our employer for those who are working.
Yeah.
So you find that the time between 8 to 5, the time you're giving to your employer. Then the time afterwards, before you sleep, you find that is the time you have to do your own things. In my case, my will of life, I'll be improving, all that. So I feel like if now you're taking time away from that, if you're taking, let me say, I think Moses, he has said he has taken 4 hours away from it. It means if you sleep, for my case, I sleep at around 10. If I take 4 hours, if I reach home, let me say at 7, 4 hours have been taken away. Practically, I've done nothing else but look at the phone. So it shows that I'm not giving, there's no balance between there's no balance between the time that I give to my work and the time that I give to my personal self.
Right.
That's what I think.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Anyone else? Okay, so I'll chip in now if no one else is answering now. So Moses, do you live alone?
No.
Okay, who do you live with?
I live with my sister.
You live with your sisters and I believe your parents, okay? And I'm asking that question for, yes, so I'm asking that, yes. So Moses, I want you to imagine if you all came home in the evening and the whole family went, because you've been really productive during the day, the whole family goes on their phone from 7 p.m. to midnight. Just picture that in your mind. So what I'm trying to say is that, so first of all, the reason why people say sometimes I'm anti-phone, mobile phones have been found to, actually the internet aspect of mobile phones, when I say internet, I mean social media, surfing the web, all that stuff, has been found to have an aspect of addiction. Some of you may have attended the session we had on addiction 3 weeks ago. So because we feel good when we are using our cell phones, you know, it actually begins to wire a part of our brain that is linked with addiction. Worse for young people whose brains are developing, but even for older people like us, the addiction develops. You will find that sometimes you check your phone even when there's nothing, you know, you have finished using your phone, you put it down, but automatically your hands are going to your phone. That is the beginning of addictions. So that is one thing I tell people, let's be very careful with the mobile phone. Every time you'll just be thinking about checking the phone, what is there, what has been said, even when you know very well that you're going to find nothing important. So let's watch out as far as addiction is concerned. Am I saying you should never be on the internet, you should never surf, you should never go on WhatsApp? I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is you need to regulate the time. Can you imagine 4 hours per day times 5? 4 hours per day times 5 is 20 hours. What else can you be doing with those 20 hours? We have a 15-year goal. Someone, let's say, may want to have a business. We can spend some of that time reading about that business, beginning to study about business right now. Am I saying we should not have fun? And Irene brought that up. Having fun is very important. And in our wheel of life, we actually need to have a component of our health. Having fun is part of health. But the point is, how much time are you going to give to it? If you're going to spend most of your time in a day put aside for having fun, you watch series, and the thing with series, when you start watching, you may watch it for 3 hours. Then after the series, you'll be on your phone for another 3 hours. So we need to really be very careful. Is there a balance? When you look at your wheel of life, are you having fun at the expense of other components as well? So what is really important is that we need to balance. It's important to have fun. All work without play makes Jill or Jack a dull person. So you need to have fun. We all need to have fun, but we need to make sure that it is balanced. I hope that answers it. And I think it was Tracy who brought in a very good point. Even when we've been very productive during the day, you will find that you've been productive in one aspect. It may be at work, it may be in your studies. So what about the other aspects? You've been productive in one aspect. What about the other aspects that make you up as a human being? We said as a human being, you're a company. So imagine if Coca-Cola company, for instance, begins to create only, to package only Coca-Cola. The customers who drink Fanta, who drink, what else does Coke make? Fanta, Sprite, will leave Coke and move to another company because they're like, these people are not spending time producing the product that we like. Or if in an organization, the focus of that institution is only in one department, the other departments will be neglected and the institution will collapse. So it's important that we balance everything. So I'm not saying do not have fun. Make sure you have time for fun, but make sure it is balanced. Be very careful with the phone because the phone has been proven to cause addiction, and actually in medicine, it is now a disease in the Department of Psychiatry. So please be very careful with how much time you're giving to your phone. Sometimes people will say, okay, I'll spend the evening with my family, and then after people have gone to bed, I'll go on my phone. You're taking off time from sleep. And studies have shown that if you don't get enough sleep, that effect, there's you have an increased risk for diseases like diabetes, obesity, which is overweight, hypertension, mental breakdown. So there always has to be a balance. But guys, let's watch out for the phone. These people who are making these apps know that it is addictive, and they make money when we are on their apps all the time. When we're on YouTube, you know, like on YouTube, if someone has 1 million viewers, they start being paid for it. And they know that these things are addictive. You end up being there and spending a lot of your time in there. So let's be very conscious and very careful. Anyone else wants to say anything? Please unmute yourself and share something, or we close. Yes. Yes, Emma?
Mine was a question. I'm sorry, my connection today has been very poor. I lost some of what you were saying when you were starting out to on the, was it Eisenhower principle?
Okay.
Yes.
Eisenhower principle. Yes.
Yes.
Can anyone tell Emma what we talked about? What was Eisenhower's principle? We forgot it already.
What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important.
Thank you very much, Irene. So Emma, that is it. So Eisenhower was the president of the United States, and he is actually credited with being the founder of what we have now as the time management matrix, which we've looked at, that was improved upon by Steve Covey. So he said, if you think about your life, you will find that things that are important are very rarely urgent, are seldom urgent. And we looked at that graph. You notice that planning for your life, having a relationship with the people who matter, preparing for a test in advance, it is rarely urgent. And that is why when we were reading it, we even felt like our heart rate had gone down, we were relaxed. It is important, they're all very important, but they're not urgent. And things that are very urgent are seldom important. So, and I asked you, as one of the things you're going to do this week is think about your life in relation to that as well. I hope that answers you, Emma.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. So if no one has anything urgent to ask or to share with us right now, thank you very much for making the time. Let's try next week to keep time. I've noticed over the last 2 weeks, we've been starting later and later. We have people joining in much later than they should. I would like us to start at 9 o'clock on the dot. It helps us finish in time as well. And also to learn the habit of timekeeping. Those who are here for the first session, remember we talked about the concept of person time. When you're late for something and other people are waiting for you, you're late by 5 minutes, but if 10 people are waiting for you, you've wasted 50 minutes of other people's time. Because each of those people would have been doing something in that time that you hadn't yet come. So let's also make timekeeping a habit. Those who have traveled abroad, you know that Ugandans, we say Ugandans don't know how to keep time, but Ugandans don't miss their flights. Even if it's at 2 a.m., the Ugandans will be at the airport 2 hours before the flight. So let's just make it a habit. It's a mindset issue. Remember, let's stop being reactive. It's a mindset issue. Let's be proactive. We know that on Saturdays at 9 o'clock, we have a meeting. Plan your day so that on Saturday at 9 o'clock, you're available for the meeting. Unless something that is a crisis comes up, the child starts throwing up or you fall and hit your knee on your way to coming to sit down. That is understandable, but please let's be more proactive. Okay, I see someone has sent something on the chat. People are asking for the videos. I definitely will send the video. Sometimes editing it and cutting it out takes a little longer, but I will make sure that I send it out to you. And then I will also send to you the tools that you need for your homework. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll meet again next Saturday. Next Saturday should be our second last session. And then we'll have one more session after that and call it a day. And then we shall plan later on to just meet again and find out how people are doing. Because I'm hoping that what you're starting right now is going to be a lifelong process. I've been doing this for several years and it's worked amazingly for me. And I really hope that it can do something for you as well. So thank you very much and have a beautiful weekend. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice
Bye. Thank you,
Bye,
Maria.
everyone. You're welcome.